My name is Katharina Alamani. I'm doing my presentation on the blood parts and their functions. First, we'll talk about the main components of blood. And the first one that we're going to talk about is plasma. Plasma accounts for around 55% of the blood fluid in humans. Plasma is 92% water, and the contents of the remaining 8% include glucose, hormones, proteins, mineral salts, fats, vitamins. The remaining 45% of blood mainly consists of red and white blood cells, as well as platelets. Each of these has a vital role to play in keeping the blood functioning effectively. When it comes to red blood cells, or erythrocytes, they have a slightly indented, flattened disc shape. They transport oxygen to and from the lungs. Hemoglobin is a protein that contains iron and carries oxygen to its destination. The lifespan of a red blood cell is about 4 months, and the body replaces them regularly. The human body produces around 2 million blood cells every second. The expected number of red blood cells in a single drop, or microliter, of blood is 4.5 to 6.2 million in males, and in females that number is 4.0 to 5.2 million. Next, we'll talk about white blood cells, or leukocytes. White blood cells make up less than 1% of blood content, forming vital defenses against disease and infection. The number of white blood cells in a microliter of blood usually ranges from 3,700 to 10,500. Higher or lower levels of white blood cells can indicate disease. The last piece would be the platelets, or the thrombocytes. Platelets interact with clotting proteins to prevent or stop bleeding. There should be between 150,000 and 400,000 platelets per microliter of blood. Bone marrow produces red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, and from there they enter the bloodstream. Plasma is mostly water that is absorbed from indigested food and fluids from the intestines. The heart pumps them around the body as blood by way of the blood vessels. Blood has various functions that are central to survival. They include supplying oxygen to cells and tissues, providing essential nutrients to cells such as amino acids, fatty acids, and glucose. They also remove waste material such as carbon dioxide, urea, and lactic acid. They also protect the body from disease, infection, and foreign bodies through the action of white blood cells. And lastly, regulating blood temperature. The platelets in blood enable the clotting or coagulation of blood. When bleeding occurs, The platelets group together to create a clot. The clot forms a scab, which stops the bleeding and helps protect the wound from infection. Now that we know the parts of the blood and their essential functions, we can also analyze the disorders that come with common blood conditions. Disorders and diseases of the blood can impair the many functions that blood performs. Some common blood disorders are anemia. This happens when low red blood cells or hemoglobin levels occur, and this means that the cells do not transport oxygen effectively, leading to fatigue, pale skin, and other symptoms. Blood clotting is another one. Blood clotting helps wounds and injuries heal, as we spoke about before, but blood clots that form inside a blood vessel can create a blockage, which can be life-threatening. If clots become dislodged and move through the heart to the lungs, a pulmonary embolism can form. Another disorder would be blood cancer. Cancers such as leukemia, myeloma, and lymphoma occur when blood cells start to divide uncontrollably without dying off at the end of their life cycle, also known as apoptosis. Hemophilia is another condition. If a person with low levels of clotting factors in their blood can show more bruising and bleeding much more easily. They may bleed for too long after a minor injury or surgery, or during menstruation. It affects around 18,000 people in the United States. Another type of disorder is a sickle cell disease, an inherited trait caused by red blood cells to take on a crescent shape. It affects over 100,000 people in the United States, mostly Black Americans. It can severely impact how blood functions and can be life-threatening. You can see an example of this in the picture, as well as anemia that we spoke about before. Thalassemia is another condition. This is also a type of inherited anemia in which the body produces an unusual form of hemoglobin. It affected around 1,000 people in the US in 2008 and is most common in people from and around the area of the Mediterranean and parts of Asia. If symptoms suggest a person may have a blood disorder, they would seek out medical attention and the doctor may refer them to a specialist in blood disorders. They are known as hematologists. So overall, in summary, we have now went over the tasks of the blood, the primary four constituents of the blood, and some of the conditions. In a final note, we can say that blood is necessary to keep the body alive and in good health. It performs a variety of tasks, including oxygen and nutrient delivery. Red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, and platelets are the blood's main four constituents. Life-threatening issues can result from disease or blood loss, although many blood-related conditions can be effectively treated. This reference is seen throughout the presentation, as well as the pictures that were included.